Good morning and welcome back to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. We're the agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation. One of the things we love to do is inform and educate the public about all matters of transportation policy and programs and projects, particularly those funded with the half-penny sales tax. But it's much more than just transportation. It's the intersection of transportation with all sorts of different issues that impact transportation and are impacted by it. For instance, the business community and our economy obviously depend a great deal on transportation and making sure that freights, goods, and people are moving effectively. To that end, we have a wonderful guest today to speak to that issue. Alfred Sanchez, President and CEO of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. Alfred, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Javi. Great being here with you, my friend.
Great, thank you. I know as a member of the Chamber now for, I think it was 15 years that I've been a member. And a member of the board of directors and now a chair of a committee, New World Center, which hopefully we'll talk about. We've known each other for years, and I have to say it's a pleasure working with you and really a great experience being a member of the Chamber. It's really played great dividends, not only for myself personally, but all the organizations I've been involved in. So thank you for having me as a member.
Thank you for being such an active member. I mean, I think, the Chamber has been around for a long time, but the one thing that has made it as great as it is the fact that we have some of the top community leaders in the top corporations being very active and working some of the issues.
Really
so thank you.
Top-notch people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the chair couldn't be with us today, but we'll have her on another day, Amy Furness. Hi, Amy.
Hey, Amy.
Hi. So you said the Chamber's been around a long time. What's a long time?
Well, let's see. So it's 117 years. Wow. And to put it in context, Miami was 11 years old, not even a teenager, when the founders of the communities decided that they needed to start an organization like the Chamber to help chisel the community around them while they literally built up their businesses and their homes. So for 117 years, we pretty much the longest serving business organization in South Florida.
Wow, and really have helped build the community over those 117 years. It's been
question.
An instrumental organization.
Yeah, it's a real honor to be a part of it.
And continues to be.
Yeah, that's right.
So for those who aren't members of chambers or really aware of the work they do, I mean, obviously you represent businesses, your member businesses, and the business community at large, but get into some of, the structure of the chamber, the committee systems, what it is that you do on a daily basis on behalf of your members and the community.
Right. So let me start by saying, just segueing from what we were just talking about, the history of this. What we do really changes over time depending on what the community needs. Right. I mean, the Chamber is here to make sure that the business environment is a healthy one for your business, the seed that you've planted, to be able to grow and fully flourish. So at different times, that meant different things. So, for instance, the very first thing we were incorporated to do was to build a harbor. Miami didn't have a harbor back then. And now it's one of the most successful ports in the world. But over time, you've seen us play a lot of different roles depending on what's needed. After Hurricane Andrew, we were very involved in the We Will Rebuild an initiative. That was what was needed there. 40 years ago, the committee that you're running, New World Center, that was started by Alfred Chapman, was really started to make Miami really live up to its role as the new center of the world as the South American market was opening up. We knew that the world was going to start coming here, if for nothing else, as a launch point to go to South America. 40 years ago, you were here. I was almost here. Miami didn't look like anything like it does behind us now. It was a retreating urban core that was basically besieged by a population of homeless over 8,000. And, there were no businesses, there was no cultural arts, there was nothing. There were a lot of trucks on the downtown roads.
Right. Coming off the port.
Right off getting to the port, that's right. And so a lot had to be done. And so we put together the master plan that really led to the building of what we see today. And part of that was to start the Homeless Trust.
Right.
which got those 8,000 homeless off the street. Today, there's between 800 and 1,000. That's way too many, but compared to sister cities like San Francisco and New York City, that they were around the same number back then in the 1980s, they have tripled, quadrupled, and sometimes more than 10 times the number of homeless, where we have reduced it and kept them off the street. And then I think, the Everglades, you would think, why is the chamber working on restoring the Everglades? Well, the water is our business here. The environment is our business, as Irela Bagué always says. And we knew that we need to make sure that the environment is safe. So that's some of the historical stuff. Today, we're focused on 4 main issues, which is transportation, which is music to your ears, and you guys have been doing a great job at CITT. Workforce housing, which we think is intricately involved and intertwined with transportation. Workforce development and resiliency. All of our committees, we have 13. It was a huge chamber.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
how many members?
Just shy of 1,000 businesses, and you think about some of the top businesses like Royal Caribbean, the county. I mean, all kinds of major employers are part of the chamber, active part of the chamber. But we have 13 different program committees. They're usually organized into industry verticals, but they all work across with each other, aiming at moving the needle on those 4 priorities.
4 major areas. And all those 4 major priorities intersect, obviously,
of course.
There's kind of a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
All parts of the same puzzle. So currently you discussed my committee, and I'm very proud to be chairing that to make sure that our urban core continues to thrive and tackles those 4 major issue areas.
Yeah.
In addition to that, and I'm not going to go through all the committees, but the one that's relevant here today to this discussion is transportation.
Yeah.
I believe it's Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, correct?
That's correct.
Tell us about the committee. Who leads it? What are some of the major initiatives there?
Obviously, one of our most important committees. We have been really blessed to have incredible leaders. The immediate past chair was Jose Abreu, who at one point was the secretary for the Florida Department of Transportation.
Right.
And the airport director, et cetera. I mean, he really was a fountain of knowledge. Today, we have Alice Bravo, who is the immediate past director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works for the county. And in line next is Alejandra Argudin, who heads up the parking authority. So,
and they've both been on this program.
And they've both been. That's great. That's great. Well, what do you have me here for? that you really couldn't tell a better story than those 2 ladies, and the committee has, I don't know, well over 100 different folks who are part of it. At any one time, we'll have 30 to 50 members actually coming to committee meetings, so it's fairly large. And you have architects, engineers. You have, people who their business doesn't per se fit into transportation, but obviously transportation affects every business, and so they have a vested interest in making sure that we really
all
are
have strong
advancing.
opinions on transportation.
Of course,
I don't care what you do or where you're from.
We do, especially in the rush hour times. But that committee is extremely important and has done great work. I've been heading up the chamber for 7 years now, and have been a part of that committee when we went to D.C. to work with Mario Diaz-Balart. As a matter of fact, if I can tell a quick story,
Sure.
Literally my first day on the job, my first meeting on my first day on the job, there was a meeting with Mario Diaz-Balart and the chair back then of the chamber, the chair of the Transportation Committee, Alice Bravo, who was then the newly appointed department director for transportation, Eileen Bouclé at the TPO. I mean, so it's a who's who, everybody are in transportation around that table, and this newbie, right? And Mario Diaz-Balart was really, coming down hard on us, rightly so, saying, listen, I have been the chair of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee that allocates money to these projects all over the country for years. I've never once been able to bring money down for my own community. And he was, as we Cubans often do, slamming the table for emphasis. And it really impressed upon me that we needed to do something. And within 2 years, we had put together. Well, Alice had, but we were very involved with her and Mario to put together a proposal that led to the South Corridor,
Right.
And the bus rapid transit.
So, fair to say that the Chamber is invested in the SMART plan.
Yeah.
That's the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan, which is hopefully going to expand rapid transit to all corners of the county. So you're invested in that as one of your top priorities in the committee, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's when the South Corridor was really being discussed.
Right.
There was this
first leg.
The first leg. And that was part of the problem, right, Javier, is that we couldn't get a proposal to Mario because we couldn't decide which leg was going to go first.
Yeah.
A lot of political wranglings around that, but I think I'm really proud of our political leaders because they really did put historical differences aside to say, okay, look, we're all in on this. We have to have a county-wide view, and whatever one is the cheapest one that we can get done first should be the first one.
Low-hanging fruit. Let's get
exactly, low-hanging fruit. And so I'm really proud of the job they did there. We had multiple town hall meetings, really to help look at the issue of, is it going to be, as I put it, is it going to be transportation with rubber wheels or steel wheels?
Right.
And so, because there was train, extension of the metro mover.
An ongoing debate even today.
Debate even today. But we held town hall meetings, and and by the way, people, when they came in, we surveyed them. So where do you fall on this? By and large, 80% were, no, we need to have the rails. And when they left, it flip-flopped. I mean,
after being informed,
of the cost and the horizon that it would take to get there, the ridership. I mean, there was so many barriers to the train. We were never going to get this off the ground, and there was a time clock clicking down on the money from the feds. Right. So I think, I'm proud of the work that we did in terms of really getting that issue clarified, and I think there was a lot more support for the, gold standard bus rapid transit that goes down.
So the Chamber not only, was able to support the choice of that technology here locally, but then you also were able to help the county land some state and federal grants, right? So a big part of what the Chamber does is to advocate in Tallahassee and DC. How do you do that?
Well, I think that's one of the hallmarks of this Chamber over history has been that we're an activist chamber. And what I mean by that is that we do whatever it takes, both by rolling up our sleeves or by putting on a tie and going and meeting with our legislators, really impressing upon them the need that the businesses, and more importantly, I think from their viewpoint, the hundreds of thousands of employees which represent votes, what the needs are there, and really try to encourage action. And so, I think we have a government affairs committee that is extremely active, run by volunteers that are all government affairs professionals.
And currently chaired by someone in the transportation space, right?
Exactly, from Uber, Giovanni Castro. People who are very knowledgeable about the political system on a local, state, and federal basis. And listen, we spend... we have a fly-in like many companies and organizations do, days up in there. We have our own, but that fly-in is really only, the tip of the spear. Really, the work gets done year-round by having relationships.
A lot of behind the scenes work.
A lot of behind the scenes, a lot of relationship building with all of our legislators. We may not always agree on everything, but they know, and I think we all are in support of the business community growing here. And so that's extremely key, so that when we go up there, we're talking to friends. Right. We're not talking to adversaries. So that's a thing that goes around all year round, and we've got a government affairs professionals that heads that up. So,
and you recently introduced the PAC as well, right? Which should also be helpful.
That's right. Historically, the Chamber has not had a political action committee, and we were able to start one a few years ago, and we were involved. the first legislative, sort of the first election cycle was the last one. So we'd be very active in this one as well. But, more than anything, because we're not a super PAC or anything, we're not bringing tens of millions of dollars to the table. But I think more than anything, we're making a statement to our friends to say we're going to support those legislators, those political officials who support a business agenda.
Okay, so you said you have about 1,000 members.
Yeah.
Which obviously makes you the largest chamber, certainly in Miami-Dade County, if not the entire state of Florida. And I know that it's one of the most successful chambers in the country. And this isn't coming from me. It's when we meet with the U.S. Chamber and the Florida Chamber and your other partners, they say the same thing. So an incredible institution.
It is.
That's left and continues to leave a mark on our community. But at the end of the day, what's in it for the member? So if I'm a small business, if I'm a corporation, why should I join the Chamber of Commerce?
Businesses join the Chamber for different things, and businesses in different stages need different things from the Chamber. I think first and foremost, I think the first reason that a business thinks about joining is to network, right? Is to get to know other businesses, maybe do some B2B work. And that certainly happens. I think the other thing is we bring certain things to the table that businesses need. So for instance, I'll give you a great example during COVID, when everything was shut down and the CARES Act money was, being formulated and coming down. No one knew exactly what would entail. They were trying to get a hold of the SBA and other organizations, and the banks and everything, but all the phone lines, all the internet was down. We started to put on webinars, in essence, where we brought in Marco Rubio, who was on the Senate side, one of the authors of the CARES Act, and the then Mayor Jimenez, to have a discussion to really impart, here's what's going on, here's what you can expect, here's what you have to be ready to do, and answer all the questions. We had 1,000, I'm not kidding you, we had 1,000 people attend that webinar each one of those times. So it is that kind of information that we can bring to the table because of the connections that we have is one thing. But I think we also have a lot of services. We have a lot of small businesses in Miami. That's the growing sector. Right. I think 98% of the businesses in Miami, and we're talking about over 90,000, so 98% of those businesses are 50 or below employees. We really are trying to lean into it. We got a Career Source of South Florida grant to start a program to reach out to those small businesses, to go to them, in essence, whether they're members or not, and ask them what are your pain points and help connect them to the existing wealth of programs and services.
So many resources out there.
Incredible. But small businesses, especially the head of a small business, is usually the primary money maker in the business. Right. That person has their nose to the grindstone, very rarely is looking up. And when they look up, it's usually because they need something and it's too late. They're panicking to look around. So finding those resources at those times are difficult. So we're trying to get them before they get to that pain point and making them aware of all of the things that are out there, and then literally handing them off to those multiple different organizations that are just really providing incredible services. So making that linkage. And the other thing is that, as we all know, healthcare is a huge issue for any business. I've run small and medium-sized businesses all my life. That's been the bane of my existence because no matter what I did, I couldn't control the cost. It would just leapfrog in double digits, sometimes 16, 20% year over year.
The U.S. is fairly unique in that the burden for providing healthcare falls in large part on employers.
On employers,
right.
Employers. And, especially in the small business market, as that's the largest percentage of our economy here, it was very important for us, and we have a healthcare committee, it was very important for us to be able to offer affordable alternatives to those businesses. So we partnered with AvMed, very reputable Florida nonprofit healthcare provider, and we put together this program we're calling the Greater Health Trust, which basically gives these small businesses 2 to 50. That's the sweet spot. the opportunity to get health care for 20, 30% of what they would pay normally. And then here's the key thing. Keep that cost low over time, right? So that, and the way it works is really easy to understand. It's if you have 5 employees, you now are given the rates of 5,000 lives being covered.
Because you're acting as that umbrella organization.
Exactly.
Right? So you're able to negotiate those better rates.
And we're spreading the risk.
Yeah.
So, but the key difference is that in those kind of plans, usually if one has some tragic loss and you have a lot of costs, that the rate increases spreads across all of them.
Right.
We have an arrangement so that it doesn't. Now that company will see rate increases, but that doesn't spread to all the other companies. So you, in essence, can have low rates and maintain them low as long as you keep your employees healthy.
Right.
So that's really, and like I said, 20 to 30% savings for a small business, that drops to the bottom line. Yeah. Think of what you can do with those dollars in terms of marketing, in terms of R&D, et cetera, et cetera.
So great for the businesses, but also obviously great for the employees.
And it keeps our community healthier, right? Because if COVID didn't teach us anything, is the importance of having good health care.
And preemptive healthcare is always better than addressing it on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, both financially and obviously for the health of the patient.
Now, I wanted to finish the question you asked me, which is, why do businesses join the chamber? So that's all the transactional stuff that businesses get out of it. But I think there are other things that are sort of higher order things. I mean, the chambers are civic organizations. Corporate leaders want to be good civic partners. And so giving their time and leadership through the chamber is a way for them to donate their time. At the same time, that time is being spent on improving they're sort of raising the tide for all boats to rise, right? And I think so improving our community improves everything for every business. So it's a really, it's enlightened self-interest, right? It's a way to give back in a way that's going to then give back to the entire community and you as well.
Yeah, I think there's a keen understanding by the members of the chamber that investing in the community ultimately is going to raise our community, and which is ultimately good for business, right? So it's, and you've share some examples of the way that the chamber has done that in the past. The Homeless Trust was a great example, but really this has been the birthplace of a number of organizations, institutions, programs. So Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Beacon Council, One Community, One Goal.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I think what you see over time, an organization that is generative, right? Meaning that it's working on important issues and generating solutions. You'll see over time that happen, that a lot of organizations kind of spin off from it. We're very proud of the fact that Prospera, which helps small Spanish-owned businesses for the most part, spun out of we incubated that organization, so it came out of the chamber, doing great work for small Spanish-owned businesses. The South Florida Defense Alliance, which is an extremely important organization looking at growing the defense industry, but also protecting our defense assets here, like the bases, et cetera. We're working very closely with them now to make sure that Homestead Air Force Reserve Base stays open. Those organizations we incubated and then put them out there, and that's part of the history, right? How do you create the institutions, create the structures, the infrastructure for this community to be healthy and grow?
So speaking of infrastructure, so we typically on this show talk a lot about mobility being transit, bicycle, pedestrian, and occasional discussions about our roadways. We rarely talk about airport and seaport, and yet those are obviously two critical transportation, what do you call it? Transportation entities, but obviously critically to our economy and to our businesses. So what is the chamber's kind of current activities in those two areas in promoting the port, not only as a cruise capital of the world, but obviously the freight component, which is very important to business, And then the same with the airport. The airport's been in the news a lot lately about some of its necessary upgrades. So what's the chamber doing in those two areas?
Well, first of all, they're both members, and both very active members. We support a lot of, there's a lot of different ways that we're supporting. First of all, I think everyone knows that we've got a great airport director in Ralph Gauthier. He's gotten he's inherited all the issues that he's trying to deal with, and I think we need to give him a chance to be able to get
better to tackle it head on, even if publicly, than to continue to sweep it under
exactly.
the rug. Right?
And I think it's important for us to have good folks like that. But we're very supportive of him and try to get the word out. On the seaport, the same thing. We've got we are the cruise capital of the world. We've got incredible cruise terminals that are constantly going up there. Wonderful security, and now we were very involved in the development of the port tunnel, which was instrumental in getting all those trucks off the road and making sure that not only are that the roadways aren't congested, but that the trucks have a more efficient way of moving the cargo and freight back and forth.
Better for the truckers, but and I was wearing my hat at the DDA at the time. An incredible opportunity to transform a part of downtown, the Overtown area, the Park West area, that had stalled for years because of those trucks. I mean, thousands of trucks on those streets. You couldn't do much with that land because of that. And so that's been a major reason for the now ongoing transformation of that area.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, continuing on the seaport, the electrification, we have a resiliency priority, and the electrification of the port is a key piece of that. So we've been very supportive of that, working with the county mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, to get that done, and Heidi at the port to be able to get it up there. So I think those are the ways, but we have a very active international committee. And one of the things we do when we go on international trips is to look at what is going on in the airport and seaports of other countries. What innovations can we see and bring back in those areas, including transportation as well. So we were in November, December in Japan, in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Yokohama, looking at transit solutions, transit innovations, meeting with government officials, but also with companies like Hitachi, Mitsubishi. But we also signed a port agreement with Yokohama, which when we did that in Israel about a year before that, we were able to bring some business directly here and folks here. But one of the things that we saw and learned in Yokohama is they have some of the most efficient loading and unloading of the freight cars in the world. I think they do something like...
And efficiency is key in that business. You need to move these things. Time is money.
The faster you get that, the faster it gets faster it gets to its destination, it's being sold. So they offload and load like 50 containers an hour, which is unheard of. Like they, by far, the fastest record. I think we do something like 30 here, which is not bad, by the way. 30, 32 is not bad. But the thing that we learned, because we're always thinking of in terms of progress being, innovation and technology and things like that, they basically do it all by efficiencies in man labor, not in technology. And so we were talking and boasting about our technology and the solutions that we're looking at, and they were saying, well, we'd like to look at that, but let me tell you, it's hard to beat a human being, especially when you get 50 off of a ship an hour. But you learn a lot of stuff like that. By the way, in terms of transportation, very incredible what we learned about there. One of the things that the Japanese are doing extremely well is that
they do a lot of things well.
They do,
especially in transportation. I mean, I'm so envious.
Well, you were there with us. I mean, it was
not that particular trip.
Yeah. It was really an incredibly eye-opening thing. Yeah. I mean, but when they build their communities, part of their building is having transportation option in there. So this sort of transit-oriented development is They live and breathe that.
Right.
And
That's
it's
a given.
really,
It's a given.
it's a given.
Yeah.
And it's really important because we saw a community that looked to me like it had been there for ages. But it was, only a couple decades old. And they had a very mature train and transit infrastructure system, beautiful homes all around. And it was incredible to see.
And they integrate the land use and development into their transit planning so well that it often funds the investment, right?
Exactly
and so,
right.
Transit is obviously heavily subsidized. It's one of the reasons we have a hard time expanding it. It costs a lot of money, and it has to be subsidized generally by taxpayer funds. But in Japan in particular, I think they really have a great model on how to pay for transit, leveraging the land use and development around it, at a massive scale.
That's right. So it gets paid for as part of the development of that. Yeah, I think it's genius what they do that. They can do a lot of things that we can't because I think their culture is so different.
Sure.
But
still, there are lessons that you bring back here,
absolutely.
and we incorporate them, and it helps us to grow. And so,
a really interesting one. Do we have time?
Please.
Yeah, a really interesting thing that I think we learned that has to do with that has implications for our SMART plan is we went to Hitachi and they introduced this concept of a battery train, which is like a train that, like a Tesla, has the battery built into it. The reason that that's important is because as we're looking at extending train lines, one of the most expensive things is electrifying that.
Sure.
You have to electrify it all the way up. But if you have the electricity already contained in the battery on the train, you have to worry about that less. So these batteries get rapidly charged every single time they stop at a station.
Okay.
So
there's
along,
chargers built into the station.
Exactly right. And so the electrification costs plummet.
Also much safer, I imagine.
Much safer. Much safer. So I think we all kind of perked up, including the mayor, kind of perked up when we saw that innovation, and we're looking at it here.
Yeah, it always bugs me when we go on these trips as a community, and inevitably there's that backlash sometimes in social media. They're going off on a junket. The reality is they work you really hard on these trips. You don't have time to sightsee. You're not having fun. I mean, you are from 7 a.m. to almost midnight. You are working.
It was
learning a lot.
Yeah.
And then bringing that knowledge and those contacts back here. So they really pay huge dividends for our community. So thank you for leading those.
Thank you. Yeah. It's great learning for us as well. I mean, really, it's just tremendous.
So we didn't talk a lot about you, Alfred, and you have a fascinating background. You're president and CEO of the Chamber now, but you've been president and CEO of several organizations in your past. We talked about the port. You worked at Royal and then YMCA and American Red Cross. Tell us about some of those roles and how you take what you've learned in those and apply them to this job.
Well, I kind of fall into working in nonprofits and these things. I'm a community psychologist. Okay. So community psychology is about keeping individuals healthy instead of treating them when they have mental health problems. And the best way to do that is to have vibrant, enriched, resilient communities. And you make communities resilient by having certain assets in the community that sort of build certain vibrancies for the individuals. And so, for instance, the YMCA is one of those assets in a community.
Great organization.
It's a great organization. It worries about families. It worries about education. It worries about health. So you've got this organization that for over 150 years has done that. And these sort of community anchors, these assets, they usually have centuries worth of experience because they are actually playing a critical role as being an asset. The Red Cross is another one, especially in Hurricane Alley like us. And I think the Chambers is one of those key assets. I mean, we talked a little bit about all the things that the Chamber has done, and that's what those assets do, is they take care of issues so that the environment is a healthy one and it's producing healthy people and giving them opportunity to grow and have jobs and have an enriching, fulfilling environment. So that's what really gets me into working in nonprofits and working in large-scale nonprofits that have a broad reach across different communities different groups in the same community. And over that time, I've learned how to run an organization. And I think for me, the key learning was a lot of people. It's a sort of a dwindling view of nonprofits, but people think that nonprofit means you don't make or you lose money, and that's not a nonprofit. Nonprofit has more to do with who the shareholder is.
Right.
In a for-profit, you have investors for whom you have to increase shareholder equity. Our shareholders are the people in the community and the members. And we are responsible to increasing their equity as well. But their equity is not in dollars and cents, but it's in greater educational systems, more jobs available, a clean environment for them to run their tourism business, et cetera. And so when you have that as a goal, then you're applying business practices that keep the organization growing and strong, and diversifying their income streams and making sure that their customers, the community, and their members are satisfied.
And by the way, as a member of the board of directors of the Greater Miami Chamber, I know you do an amazing job of that at the Chamber. It is healthy.
Thank you.
It's growing through very challenging times. I mean, the pandemic could have been the end of the Chamber, and yet you guys were very innovative and continued to provide necessary service, expanded your services to your members to keep the Chamber afloat and to continue to grow it.
Yeah,
so
we
congratulations.
grew that. Listen, I'll tell you, when you're the CEO, you get a lot of the credit. But let me tell you, it really takes an incredible staff. I have passionate people who care deeply about this community. They're not working a job. They're trying to change the community, trying to change the world. When you have those kind of, I call them, they're not employees, they're missionaries. I mean, they're on a mission. They come.
Well, I can attest to that. They're fantastic.
They're fantastic. That's what has made the success. And then I think, you are a shining example of the board members that really support this organization. The board is a very generous board in terms of time and money, but you're all the leadership of all those committees. We don't have issue experts. You are the issue experts, and you pour your passion and your time into this organization, and that's what makes it great. So my success has really been the success of you all, people who care deeply about this community and will not take it going backwards as an option. So we've really pressed up on because we have such leaders like you all.
So, Alfred, I think you've made the case for the Chamber pretty well. So if somebody is watching and they're not currently a member and they're interested in potentially exploring membership or attending some of the events to kind of feel it out, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, we have a great website. They go to miamichamber.com, and that you find everything you need to know about the Chamber there. You can also join through there, but call us, because you can easily find our contact on the site. Call us if you're interested in just checking it out. We often invite people to come to our trustee luncheons or some of our other events to sort of kick the tires and check it out. And I think most people come away with thinking, God, I got to be a part of this. Like I did when I first arrived in 1995, from Baltimore. I came down to run the Red Cross and wanted to get involved and get to know people, and got pointed in the direction of the Greater Miami Chamber and never looked back.
And I can say the same. Again, been a member for all this time because it pays dividends. Again, not only for myself, but for the organizations I represent. And by the way, we didn't even talk about Leadership Miami, which is another great program for upcoming leaders to join. So much more we could have talked about, so I'll have to have you on another day. So we're out of time. So Alfred, again, thank you for everything you're doing, everything you've done in your past, and everything you'll continue to do on behalf of our community moving forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. I want to encourage you to continue to tune in every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. I also invite you to learn more about us at the CITT. We are actively looking for members of our board, and we're actively recruiting CITT ambassadors. These are regular riders of the transit system that act as our eyes and ears on the system, and get rewarded as a result with free transit passes, free Uber rides, you name it. So if you're interested in either of those opportunities or to learn more about what we do, please visit our website at miamidade.gov/CITT. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.